I learned to make sourdough.
Okay.
And I was making sourdough bread. My loaves were coming out perfect, and I was like, I love it. I need somewhere to put this bread. What do I do? I looked on Amazon. I saw bread bags, and I'm like, I could totally do that. My goodness. And I started sewing the bento bread bags.
We are back with another episode of Mothering Holistically, a podcast amplifying everyday moms' voices, creating a space to share stories, practical tips, and inspiration. I'm your host, Kaylee Berlinee, a mama finding balance in motherhood because balance is key when mothering holistically. So no matter where you are connecting with us from, please subscribe and give us feedback as we continue to make this podcast motivational and helpful for you all. So today, I'm so excited. We are chatting with Angel, a registered nurse, self-taught sewist, and the creative force behind Bubba's Creations, a cozy, faceless corner of the internet where sustainability meets slow crafting and motherhood. So please give a very warm welcome to Miss Angel. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm really interested on where did the name Bubba's Creation come from? If we can start there. I love the name. So I was like, what was the inspiration behind that?
So before my husband and I had kids, we had 2 dogs, and we were the Bubs. Later, it became like Bubba, and so we would just say Bubba, little terms of endearment. So when I was thinking of making my business, I had several names, several names. But I was like, oh, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to name it Bubba's Creations. Like I have like, like business things like a bank and emails and stuff. And there is this the owner of Bubba's Creations. And sometimes I'm just like, yeah, that's me. Hi.
I love that. And I love the story behind it, especially because it's so near and dear. Sorry, just real quick, we're on a budget here. So I use my TV as my studio lighting.
Oh, no worries, girl.
So that's why it keeps like shutting off, but it's fine, whatever.
It was perfect too. I have a lamp. Your lighting is better.
I use my TV. So what role has creativity played in your personal healing journey, especially as a mom?
So first of all, my kids are 9 and 5. And so my 9-year-old, she's very creative, very into arts, very into dance. And my second child came around, and she's also very artistic. She also does, dance and other creative things, but she's really quite artistic. And I always found myself doing what they were doing, right? Like just, buying paint, buying the coloring, going to Michael's, going to the 99-cent store for crafts, and really realizing that I wasn't doing my own crafts, right? I was doing the crafts that my kids would choose. And as my youngest got older, I started to really realize, wow, she's like really independent, and she kind of doesn't really need me. You know what I mean? Like she needs me, but like she doesn't need me like the way she needed me when she was like 2. Right? She's a little bit older now. And as this was happening, I was like, oh my gosh, could I like go to the craft store myself and just buy something for me? And literally, it just so happened that I learned to make sourdough.
Okay.
And I was making sourdough bread, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'd watched so many videos that and all my loaves were coming out perfect. And I was like, I love it. I'm like, I need somewhere to put this bread. And I'm like, what do I do? And I looked on Amazon, and I saw bread bags, and I'm like, I'm not going to buy that. That's way too expensive. I could totally do that. My goodness. And I got my sewing machine out, and I started sewing the bento bread bags, and I started doing it late at night when like the kids were asleep. And I just realized like I was doing it every single day, and I didn't have that much bread, and I would just make more bread. And then I started putting my bread in the bags and gifting it to my friends and my coworkers and my family. And they're like, oh, thank you. And I was like, I want to go home, and I want to make more bread, and I want to make more bento bags. And then before you knew it, I was like, oh, wow, I can make my own makeup bag and I could make a coin purse and I could do this and I could do that. And it just like, my gosh, I have a hobby for the first time in 9 years. I have a hobby. And one of the other things that happened around the same time as sourdough is we had an incident in our house where we had to replace the floor. And it was super stressful. Nobody wants to deal with that.
Right.
But one of the things that happened was we had to pack up about half the house. And one of the rooms that was packed up was the kids' playroom. And so since they were growing and they weren't really ever playing in this playroom, I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to put like a dance floor and I'll put mirrors and, my oldest could dance in there. And so could my youngest. And so I bought the mirrors. And I was in the process of buying the floor. And she's like, yeah, Mommy, I don't want to do that. She's like, I don't want to dance in that room. She's like, I want to dance out here with you guys. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I guess, it was always like a guest room and like a playroom. And so my goal was to make it a guest room and a dance room. And so the guest room part of it was settled. But this room is quite a nice size. And I was like, oh, wow. So like I could just get my sewing machine and my desk. And now I can have like my material and I have a bookshelf that's like now filled with fabric. And so I really, really leaned into my sewing, my creativity, and I've just been in love with it. I didn't expect it. I was a little bit shocked, and I definitely have a hobby / business.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't even, as a kid, I feel like you're so free to have a hobby and you don't realize how much you kind of need that outlet. So I love that you're like, I finally have a hobby because I feel the same.
I do. I love it.
So what was the main motivation behind doing it faceless, and how has that shaped your connection with your audience?
So for me, being faceless, I kind of feel like, so I'm a little bit older, I guess you would say. And I never was like really big on Facebook or Instagram. I didn't like placing myself a lot in front of the camera or in front of social media. And so when I decided to create a page for Bubba's Creation, I decided to go on TikTok, and it was a platform that, a lot of people that I know weren't on. And I was like, okay, I like that. I want to be able to be creative and not remove myself from this. It's like it's my creations, but I don't really want to put myself in there. A lot of TikTok people do. They're quite successful. I'd probably have more followers if I did that. But I found really quickly a community of people who basically do the same thing. They have their sewing and their faceless content, and it's all about the things that they're creating. And I love it. I absolutely love it. There's a sewing community on TikTok. I've liked my content. I've liked putting on everything about it, right? My creativity, my mistakes, my successes, things I'd had to redo over and over. And, I think by just removing myself from it, it was just easier for me.
I really appreciate that. I actually follow a lot of content creators that do a lot of homemaking and they don't show themselves. And I find it really relaxing because you can just focus on what they're doing. It's easier to learn because you're not distracted by superficial, what they have on, what their hair looks like, whatever. And I really like that. So I really admire the faceless content, and I think that there is a huge space for that. And I completely understand when you kind of want to separate yourself from your everyday environment and community to kind of escape and have your own space and, like you said, create that community of like-minded people. So that's really cool. I appreciate that a lot. And so what do you wish more creators understood about showing up authentically without revealing everything?
So that's a really good question. So I recently, on my sewing TikTok, I was tasked or chosen, I guess, to do an ofrenda for Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah.
And I was so excited to do it that I immediately went onto my sewing TikTok and I went to a quilting page of a Latina quilter. And
Mm-hmm.
she sells her patterns. And I quickly bought her pattern. And I don't like to follow patterns, but her pattern was very easy to follow. And I made a little quilt block for the ofrenda. It turned out really cute. And I remember when I was doing that, there are other quilters who are Latina,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm Latina as well. But in their content, they make it a point to identify themselves as Latina quilters. And while I respect that, I understand. You know what I mean? I don't understand like why I'd have to identify myself. You know what I mean? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just my own perspective. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I'm following you. I think okay, so what I get from that is kind of a similar thing with in my field with
Mhm.
podcasting. I understand that there's a draw to be more nichey and there's podcasts exclusively for African American
Right. Like,
entrepreneurs,
mm,
African American women. You know, it's exclusive for that. And I understand that it's like women is half, half of
yeah.
the population. So it's like hard to be specific with that. But I think you could be specific with just saying women entrepreneurs or women
Right.
sewers. You know, I
Yes.
don't understand why it has to be specific to one ethnicity.
That's
So
exactly how
that's what
I
I'm
feel.
grasping. Yeah, because I'm like for my show, I wasn't just gonna be like, oh, for black moms. You know, it's just
Like
for
you want to be for like for
moms.
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, I want to talk to everyone. I want to
Yeah.
learn from everyone.
Yes.
But I get what you're saying. It's like hard
Yeah.
because you're like, why do we have to be so specific on
Right.
our ethnicity?
I have exactly like I feel
Hmm.
like I'm a woman, I'm a mom, I'm a Latina, I'm a sewist. I don't I personally don't feel the need to include that part. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
just like I have activities, I have a hobby for the first time. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah.
My kids have told me you need to stop buying fabric. I'm like, okay, I'll try.
I know
But
it sucks for me. I like thought of you immediately when I saw that big roll of fabric. I
like,
was
oh, she
like,
hasn't
I'm gonna
been
tell
here.
Angel, yeah, because it's really nice. It's really nice fabric, and we're just so much more than that. You know, we're just so much more than our ethnicity. It's part of us, clearly, but
Yes.
we're more than that. So I appreciate you saying that, and I believe we've already talked about kind of maybe not. So I'll ask, what's one product you're most proud of? And what story lives behind that? But is it the bento bags?
Yes. So far, my bento bag is the one who brought me back to sewing, and it's the one who's made me realize I love creating and I love making things. And some of my friends get surprised that I'm a mini Martha Stewart internally, but I also love my job, and I'm like I'm not gonna leave my job. Like I would love to, but you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
I try to do both,
Mm-hmm.
and so
I love that. And I do feel like there's this pressure sometimes where people feel like it's either one or the other.
yes.
You either, this all in culture,
Hmm.
but it's a balance, you
It
know?
is.
Like you said, it could be a hobby. And yes, I'm making some income from this hobby, thank
Hmm.
goodness.
Hmm.
But I still love what I'm doing in my career and I can, find a way to balance it all and be happy
Yes.
and fulfilled. So, what are some small ways mom can bring more slow living into their routines, even with kids around?
So I would say that making small goals,
Mm-hmm.
weekly goals, and a task that is manageable, not too big of a task, as there could be some frustrations in sewing if you move too fast or if you, as you know, I have my blooper section. But I think small little bits, like currently I see this pouch that carries both wipes and clothes. And
Yes.
I've looked at the pattern and I've looked at the pattern a little bit and it's like that's more than a day. You know what I mean? And I sewn the boxy bags. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
until you get good, that pattern has a lot of steps to it.
Okay.
But I would say it's super doable. 3-day project,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, something achievable. I think that that would be the best way. The other thing would be is crocheting. I did crochet a bit more while the kids were small than I did sew.
Mm-hmm.
And I crocheted ponchos, scarves, hats, a lot of cute things. And crocheting, depending on how fast you crochet, it could also go really fast. It's you just get this fulfillment of creating something. I even
Finishing
made,
it.
yeah, finishing it. And
Mm-hmm.
I even crocheted little hats and ponchos for my kids' dolls that they still have today, and so just little steps like that.
Yeah, because that would be
That,
quick too. And then you
yeah,
can see the excitement. It's like that's so much dopamine that you would be experiencing because you
yes,
started something, you finished it, and then you give it to your kids, and then they're excited. So now you're
yes,
excited. That's a lot
yes,
of like
yes. Here
excitement.
this year, my youngest found her baby poncho,
Oh,
and she said, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, that's yours. I haven't donated it yet. I still love it, still holding on to it, even though it doesn't fit her." And she's like, "I love it." She's like, "Will you make me one?" And I'm like, "Oh, absolutely." So we went to Michael's, we picked some yarn, and I started that evening. And she came up to me like 30 minutes later. Is it done?
is it done?
I mean, was able to crochet it fast, but it was like not that fast. So,
That's so sweet. I know
mhm,
that that feels so good. I mean,
mhm,
now that I have my own children, I completely understand. My mom is her love language is gift giving. Growing up, our Christmases were kind of over the top, and she would kind of tell us how she acquired some of our gifts, and like she would drive like 3 hours away to get certain things that we had
mhm.
on our list or whatever. And as we got older, we were kind of like, Mom, you don't have to do all that. And she
Mhm.
was like, I just love it. I just love
Yeah.
how excited you get. And then now that I'm a mom and just
Uh,
the little things when you give your child something and they just get so excited, I completely understand that.
yes.
So to make
Hmm.
something and have them love it, I'm sure that that comes with a whole nother sense of feelings.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
So, how do you stay grounded when social media moves so fast, but your work is intentionally slow?
So in the beginning, I tried to follow the trends and I
Mm-hmm.
tried to do everything they told you to. And it never would never work for me ever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I was like, wow, I don't have 40,000 followers like the way this person got in 3 days. And I realized that I had to just not listen to that. And,
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of went back to why am I doing this? I'm doing this to show my creations and show the things that I love to do and
Mm-hmm.
be authentic in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have thousands and thousands of followers. I have over 1,000 followers and I'm very happy about. And I literally just stopped following the trends and I realized I'm much happier.
Mm-hmm.
I like to upcycle. And, some people were like, "Ugh," but I love it because it's part of my my creativity and just
Mm-hmm.
viewing something in a different way. I just continued on that, doing the things that I like, kind of just doing it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I am a seller on TikTok. I'll make my commercials, I'll make my stuff, or I'll go to my craft fairs and make my little sales there.
Yeah, I completely know what you mean, trying to follow those trends because, like you said, it's like you see other people who are like, I got this many followers in this many days,
Yeah.
and here's how. And I feel like because, for you, you have other things that are fulfilling you, it is easier to just be like, if this is going to stress me and take the fun out
Mhm.
of what I'm doing,
Yeah.
it'll grow in my time at that point
Right.
because
Right.
their page grew in their time and what they were able to accomplish, and mine will grow in my time. But I completely understand when you're like, well, I'm doing this for these reasons, and
Right.
if I try to pivot and do that, it's gonna not be authentic, it's not gonna be me. So I respect
Right.
that.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
So what does balance look like in your world right now, and how
Mhm.
do you protect it?
So it's been kind of a busy fall, and I had a craft fair in October, and the kids have their school schedules and their
Mm-hmm.
activities, and things were quickly getting really, really busy. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I did was I committed to only one craft fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really kind of happy I did so. I really wanted to do a second one, but I was like, you know what? I'm kind of spread a little bit thin. The kids' schedules are really kind of a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. I'm just going to do the one craft fair. This month, I was going to do another craft fair, and this month ended up a little bit busier than what I anticipated. And I was quite happy I didn't submit the application. So, in the end, I just took a deep breath and I said, you know what? I'm a little bit too busy. I really want to. I have a lot of things that I could be selling right now, and you know what? I'm going to just pass rather than just stress myself out, stress my family out. I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean?
I appreciate the fact that you're like, you're assessing your situation and you're not overdoing yourself. I really like how you're just like, I kind of take it day by day and I assess what's going on, what's on our calendar, and if it's within the cards, if it's not
Mm-hmm.
pulling at me too much, I'm able to do it. Of course
Mm-hmm.
I want to do it.
Right. I
I
do. I
love
want to
it.
do
I
it.
want to do it. I love it, but I'm a mom. I have these responsibilities
Right.
and I have to handle that and then always seek to make it happen within its
Mm-hmm.
time. And how are you sourcing your events?
Yeah, so some of the events I have found by just going onto Google and asking Google, like, what are local craft markets.
Okay.
I have some friends who live in Ocean Beach, and
Mm.
they're really big into craft fairs there. And
Mm-hmm.
so I, learned about that craft market.
Okay.
There's a few in San Diego, like in the North Park area. I've looked at those craft markets. The way I ended up at the craft market where you and I met was
Mm-hmm.
because I had gone to the Rise and I had met the owner, and she was telling me, she's like, hey, I have a market if you wanna sign up for it. And I was like, sure. And so I signed up for that market, and like the ones in November. And then at that market, like the lady in the booth next to me was like, oh, are you doing the market next weekend at the winery? And I was like, oh, I'm not. And she's like, oh, they have one in December. We take the kids to for the pumpkin patch.
Okay.
It's out. I don't even know if it's called Bates Nut Farm.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and the kids love it there. And when I was there, they were like, "Oh yeah, we have a bunch of vending markets coming up for our
Mm-hmm.
Christmas season." And so it's kind of that's basically like how I've been navigating it.
Okay.
And then of course there's the other places which I kind of think they're a little bit underrepresented, but maybe I'm wrong, and that is the swap meets. And there are a few in San Diego County that still get quite a bit of traction. And so it just depends, on what you're selling and what your goal is, because of
Mm-hmm.
course the markets are a little bit different at each event.
And just for listeners who are interested in like selling their things, do you always have to stay the entire time? Or are some of the markets like flexible with how long you can be there and things like that?
No, they have pretty set guidelines. Like you have to be set up pretty much like 2 hours before an event, and you
Okay.
have to stay until the end of the event. And so
Okay.
you do have to be very mindful about those hours. And then in some cases, the if you're there alone and like you have to use a restroom, like it's really far. So you gotta have to plan like that, or have your family member come and be like, you watch this for 15 minutes, or your neighboring booth be like, hey, I'm gonna be right back. Things like that.
Yeah, and it's cool that it sounds like some of the people that you meet also you're able to network with because you're like, okay, if you're going to be there too,
Yeah.
maybe we can help each other out.
Yes.
I like that. So it's also kind of building community there too as well. So that's really nice. I like that. And I guess that kind of leads into the next question with what practices or community connections help you feel supported as you grow this passion project?
I mean, I feel that since I've started sewing very consistently,
Mm-hmm.
I've taken a few trips, and on my trips, I have made it a point to stop by the quilt shop or stop by the thrift store in that
Okay.
city. And I tell them I'm Angel from Bubba's Creation. I'm on TikTok. And I love your, materials or whatever they have, and I like making a little video and posting that to my social media. And I feel like that's helped me grow and just make it a point to visit like a fabric store. Like we had a trip to Disneyland,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I'm not coming home without fabric. And there's like this huge fabric store, and I didn't want to disappoint my children or my husband. And I'm like, don't worry, we're gonna go after Disneyland. So on the way home, okay, guys, the following day, and it was so funny because the kids didn't want to go inside. And so I'm in this store, and they have like the most beautiful fabrics I've ever seen. And I'm taking so long. And I hear the door open, and it's my whole family. And they're like, hurry up. I'm like, okay, mommy's just with like 13 skeins, like standing in line, or not skeins, bolts, standing in line. But I love it. I love
That's
it.
so funny because Rise is like my happy place because I go there to get like new stuff for the show, gifts, things like that. So it's funny that you said that because my husband and my daughters wait in the car. Luckily they're small because we have like because I can't have my daughters in there. They'll break something.
Just wait here. Mommy will be right back.
Right. And luckily we have a TV. That's the only time in the car where they get to watch the TV is when I'm in that store because I'm taking my time,
Yes. Yeah. This is mommy's time.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you take time to, because first off, it's amazing that you have found something, because I just feel so lucky finding something that I truly love. And I know that I love it because I'm able to talk about it and with anybody. And so it's the same for you. You're like, like anywhere at time I go and I travel, I'm going to local thrift stores and I'm going to local fabric shops. I'm telling them who I am and I'm making myself known. And it's like, that's really how I'm able to tell that like you love this. And I just feel that's so awesome to find something that you love and that's yours and that you could have, especially on top of just life's blessings with your children and your husband. And I just think that's so awesome that you're able to do that and incorporate that because when you go on vacations, of course it's family and you have all these things on your agenda, and you do take that moment to just prioritize your hobby and your passion. I think that's awesome. Yeah.
I've loved it so far. I can't wait. Like every trip, like I have planned, I'm like, where's the fabric store?
What has been like the best outside of where you live? Where has been the best fabric store, you think?
I want to say the one in Anaheim was pretty good. I was really, really surprised. I went to Vegas, and the fabrics they had were just so different than the ones here in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
They were all about the glitz and glam, and I loved it. And I would know the first thing to do with any of those fabrics, but I just loved walking through and seeing the huge bolts, and like you could just imagine the wedding dress and the gowns, and like it was really beautiful. And so I really like that fabric store. And then online, since Joanne's has gone online, there's quite a bit of fabric stores as well. And I do like picking out some fabrics from online, but it's not the same.
It's not the same as being able to touch it.
Exactly. Not just touch it and the color. Like I ordered a fabric recently, and when it came, it was so pale compared to the colors I saw online. And I was like, man, it's just a little bit disappointing. But around here, I went to one independent shop down in, I want to say in the Kensington area. And she did have quite unique fabrics, but there weren't very many. And most of them were plaid. They were pretty. They were very, very pretty, but it was not enough variety. Michael's is slowly getting more variety. And then the other store that has a lot of fabric is Hobby Lobby, but it's like the fabric that everybody has. And don't get me wrong, if that's fine, if that's what you like. But I don't know. I just I want to find something different. And so that's really what's led me to Rise. Actually, that's how I ended up at Rise. I was looking for materials and I didn't realize that there was like a Goodwill in Rancho Bernardo.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, what? There's a Goodwill. And I went there and I wasn't thrilled at all. Like I was like less than 5 minutes. And so I went back to my car and I just entered thrift store and it said Rise Resale and it was 5 minutes away. So I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up at Rise and fell in love with the place, fell in love with everything. Their rack out in the front, you know,
Yeah.
their sales, their craft sections,
Mm-hmm.
their furniture,
Mm-hmm.
their price, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The first day that I went there, there was a vintage sewing machine in a cabinet, and I asked if I could open it and kind of look at the machine. And I looked at the machine, and in the throat plate of the machine, there was a note written presumably by the owner, and it said, "Adjust 3 stitches for every inch." Or something like that. And I was like, oh, how sweet. She's like letting people know about like her machine is off by 3 stitches. I know. It was kind of odd, but you know, I put it back and then I opened the rest of the machine and it had everything. It had like thread and scissors and patterns, and I was like, what? And I was like, do you guys know that this is in here? And they're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, and the whole thing was only $20. So I called my husband and I said, hey, I found a vintage sewing machine, can I bring it home? And he said no. And he said no because I did that before one time a long time ago, and I never fixed the machine, and you know, and so I basically started crying. I was like crying inside of Rise, like my first time there, and I was like, if that machine fit in my car, I probably that like the whole because it was the furniture, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
probably would have just brought it home. So one of the volunteers working there, she's like, oh, honey, don't be upset. You know, we get these all the time. And I was like, oh, really? She's like, oh, yeah. She's like, all the time. And I was like, well, I just really want this one. And she's like, oh, that's okay. And somehow the other volunteer came and the other volunteer came. So there's 3 volunteers. And they told me what that organization stood for.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, I will never go anywhere. Like, it's not that far from my house. All my donations will go to there from now on. And, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. When we went to Rise and they like had the same spiel and they told us what it was and everything like that, it was like, oh, I'm bringing my stuff here and
Yes.
definitely going to be supporting. And
Yes.
like you said, you just find so many gems there. And I'm really excited. A little teaser for listeners. I don't know when it's going to air at this point, but I'm really excited to talk to Terry, the owner, and have her on the show because, yeah, the mission behind it and everything that it stands for. I'm not going to get too far down that road, but just for those of you that are thrifters and you really value a quality, not superstore thrift place like Goodwill, this place is just a gem and it's awesome. And when you upcycle though, do you also like get clothes? Like, so you find like cool clothes and then just
Yeah,
reuse it?
I do. I look at clothes. I always try to find cotton. Cotton's
Yeah.
the easiest to recycle.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much material out there. I've recently been
Mm-hmm.
working with rayon. It's a little bit easier to sew than I thought. And then the some of the upcycled makeup bags I've made are made out of corduroy pants, which I'm absolutely obsessed with. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
currently on the hunt for navy blue. So I found and I've experimented with the different materials.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you can find cotton, that's the easiest, in my opinion, to upcycle.
Mm-hmm.
Corduroy is really messy, but
Mm.
the things I've made with the corduroy, I have been in love with. I've made bags, I've made the coin purses, I've made the
Mm-hmm.
makeup bags, and some other things are just making a bunch of scrunchies off of dresses. And so people seem to like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I find saving this garment from the landfill in some cases.
Yeah.
And so it's not all just the fabrics, it's like repurposing other materials or other items into the things you the things that I make.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love the repurposing because, like you said, things just end up in the landfill. And if
I
we can do
do.
something
It's
with just our small little help, we can do a
fast
little bit.
fashion is cool looking. You know what I mean? Like they come up with really cool designs
Mm-hmm.
and they're all over the thrift stores as well, right? I
Mm-hmm.
see things,
Mm-hmm.
from the Temu and the H&M and from a lot of other brands as well. And I'm just like, this is where it ends up. And if nobody uses it here, then that's all going to go probably to the landfill, or
Yeah. So, what does creating quietly mean to you? And how is it powerful in its own way?
one of the things that I noticed was so I have a lot of ideas, right? And in the beginning, when I was getting away from the bento bread bags and wanting to make the other items, was that I was running into a lot of obstacles that weren't real obstacles. They were just like I found myself kind of in somewhat of a paralysis of not being able to move forward. And I thought that was really strange, right? Because I would have these ideas and yet I wasn't executing these ideas. And I was like, okay, this is really weird. And I had to kind of dissect what was happening. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And so I just started kind of breaking it down just for myself. Wanting to post, I'm wanting to grow my account, put it on sale. And I think it was just like all just way too much. You know what I mean? So what I
Yeah.
did was I had like a day where I would sew,
Mm-hmm.
and then that wouldn't be the same day that I would post because then I was like too overwhelmed and too worried about that. You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
I started just kind of getting into that little habit and then not putting the pressure on myself that just because I'm creating something doesn't mean I have to be filming it. Like I could just be just creating. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And before you knew it, I realized I was like making some of the best things I've ever made, like at 2 a.m. And I'm like, wow, this turned out so good. I didn't even have to seam rip anything. And so I just kind of had to find my own flow. Like I mentioned, like this fall has been a little bit busier than what I anticipated. And when I look back at what I've made, I'm like, my goodness, I made my kids 2 quilts. I made them 2 Halloween quilts. I did a whole craft fair. I did the ofrenda. I sewed part of my kid's Halloween costume. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's okay. It's been a couple of days. I did a lot, actually. Of course, my kids asked for Christmas quilts now. And I had no intention of making that. So we'll see if I if I
Get
make them or
around to
not.
it.
Yeah.
And do you write down the things that you do to, because it's really nice to feel accomplished in it. And I feel what I'm gathering from you is when you look back and you're like, okay, what did I actually do? And you're like, oh, I did a lot.
Yeah, I
Okay,
did a
pat
lot.
myself on the back.
Yes.
So do you write this down, or do you kind of just think back on your month
So,
to kind of?
particularly for the craft fairs, like I like to have an inventory. What I would do is keep a list on my iPhone and write like 40 coin purses. And then on the other side, I would write how many coin purses I actually had, which was
Okay.
18. I would say 20 bento bread bags, but I only had 16. I would write like what my goal was and what the reality was
Okay.
of that. And that's kind of helped me kind of keep track. So I know that I had this lofty goal of making 40 makeup bags. I got to 12. That was good enough. You know what I mean? I'm like, but I made some other things. I made 2 quilts. You know what I mean? I'm like, so it's like a little give and take. But so I will keep track of it. And then I just decided to make something completely new. What was the first time I had made it? And I'm so happy I did because they sell fantastic at the markets, and that is the bowl cozies. And so
That's so basically because when you get a hot soup or something,
yeah,
you can. I love
and
that.
now like me and my family, we're using the bowl cozies all the time. And I was like, this is so crazy. Like I didn't sew that until like a week before my market, before my fall market, and I completely sold out of them.
Yeah,
And
I'm like,
I
I
was
want
like,
some. Those are good gifts
yeah.
too.
And what was really funny about making that was the first time I made it, it took me an hour to make it, to make one.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said to my husband, wow, this is like really not sustainable, right? Because like I can only sell this thing for like $7, right? And I
Right.
just spent a whole hour on that. So I'm like, oh, something's got to happen. And so I kind of made a little assembly line. In my assembly line, I'm able to make a lot more in 1 hour. And I was like, okay. And it's really not about the value, right? But it was like just the amount of time you were spending on making the item, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because at first I was like, oh, an hour, that's not bad. But then when you put it in perspective like that, it's like, no, it's not
Yeah.
great. So when you
Yeah.
do your assembly line, what do you do that makes it more efficient?
So I'll do all my cutting and ironing, which I don't love, but I'll iron it all and make all my cutting. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
that my cuttings are good because if you're not, if you your cut isn't right, your item's gonna end up crooked, you know. And then for that specific project, you can buy pre-cut 10 by 10 quilt blocks, which is what you need. But I had a bunch of fat quarters. The first couple, the way I cut them, I was only able to get one, like one side. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
know how I cut it. I cut it horribly. And then I realized I was like, oh my gosh, I can get two out of each fat quarter. And that was really nice. But when you can get them by 10 by 10s, of course, that increases the price.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are kind of better off cutting your own fabric. But making sure I had all that cut out, making sure I had all the batting cut out. Once you kind of line them up, stack them up, you know, you're just like a little assembly line. And it's really kind of funny because when I get into that kind of like assembly line mode, my small child will come and feed me. She'll bring me. She'll bring me some play food and like a play coffee. She's like, here you go, mommy. You look like you're working really hard.
Oh,
I'm like, thank you.
that's so sweet.
I know, it's very sweet.
Have they ever asked to go to your fairs with you?
Yes, yes. My oldest one wants to go to every single fair and be the seller, basically. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, this is mommy's thing. And then my youngest one, she still doesn't really know what we're doing there. She calls it my garage sale. So what I do is I'll have my husband bring them later in the craft fair so that they're not there the whole day.
Okay. So if you could leave one gentle reminder with our listeners, what would it be?
You know, it's been really nice to find myself, I want to say, through mothering for the last basically almost decade. And I wish I would have been able to implement that sooner. You know, I'm not really sure that I could have, but that's basically what I would say is like I would find to do basically like your self-care, whether it is in your kids' nap time or, you know, something as small as like crocheting. I would have wished that I would have implemented it years ago, but I don't know really why I didn't.
For moms that kind of experience mom guilt for doing things for themselves, what advice do you have for them?
I totally hear you. It's really a real thing. You always want to be present for your children and for their activities. And for me, like I mentioned, I didn't really pick this up until I realized that my youngest was super independent of me. Like she just didn't want me to sit next to her and draw. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, no, you go do something else. Like, I'm good. And I'm like, oh, okay. And what am I gonna do? And I was like, I felt like she was giving me permission to do something different. It felt so refreshing. I mean, literally felt so refreshing. It just invigorated me.
And just out of my curiosity, how do you balance being so enthralled with your passion, of course, being a mom, having a career, and then prioritizing your marriage?
Yeah, so it's been interesting, right? Because my husband, I had a sewing machine 16 years ago. And so he saw me teaching myself how to sew on YouTube. And he saw the things that I was making and then me randomly sewing throughout the next 16 years to this year where my sewings exploded. And so he's basically looked at our guest room slash old playroom slash, you know, wannabe dance studio And it's now like a full-blown sewing room. It's basically like Joanne's in there. And so he's like, look, he's like, you really love it? I'm like, I love it. Like, just look at me creating away. So he's been really supportive. He's been really supportive during this time. Like I said, bought vintage material from Facebook and bought materials, both stuff that I upcycle and actual fabric from the thrift stores. So I'm like, look, it's even economical. I'm not even spending all the money I could be, So there right now I have a surplus of fabrics. He does see the things that I'm creating, and he's been supportive of it. He has said to me he's not going to go to work at my sweatshop, and I'm like, okay, whatever.
He's like, that's all you.
Yeah, help me pack the car and help me unpack, at the craft, and he waves goodbye, bye. But he is supportive.
I love that. I know I put my husband to work, especially like people love seeing the behind the scenes. So every time I film at night, I'm like, don't forget, just get a little something. And lastly, finish the sentence for me. Mothering holistically means.
It means including yourself, finding your peace. And I think understanding the fulfillment I have had by getting my hobby by this year. And it's a hobby I've always had, but I just didn't pay attention to it. I prioritized my kids, and I kind of just wish I would have learned to balance that a little bit better, because it does. It feels so nice. And I feel like I'm a better mom because of it, but my kids may disagree. Who knows?
It sounds like they're enjoying it too, with all their goodies that they're getting.
Yeah. Their dresses and their visions. And of course they want me to sew sequins. And I'm like, this is like the hardest thing to sew. And I'm not really sewing clothes, right? And so I sewed a sequin skirt and it turned out perfect. And she looked really good in it.
See, that's the mother love right there. Like, I don't really know, but you go out of your way. And luckily, they're small. So
yeah.
It's not like you have to do an adult size something yet. But that's so cool. I love that. I love that for you and your family. It's so sweet. And of course, how can people support your work or connect with you after this episode?
So if you want to come follow me on TikTok, Bubba's Creation. And then I have an Etsy shop. It's called Bubba's Creation Studio. And I have also a Shopify, Bubba's Creations, or you can find me at some of the markets. And some markets will put like all the shops that will be there, and others won't. I try to put the markets that I'll be on my TikTok page.
Okay.
So
perfect. And then, of course, all of her information will be down in the description below. So if you didn't catch it, then you can, of course, just look in the description and get all of her information there so you can stay connected. I love her stuff. I'm definitely a supporter. So thank you so much for sharing the background behind Bubba's Creation. I loved hearing the story. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Of course. And anyone listening can always follow me at Kaylee Berlinee on all social media platforms. Follow the podcast for all the sneak peeks and guest announcement at Mothering Holistically. And then tag us if you learned anything or if you feel encouraged to get going on your hobby. If you pick up anything from Angel, definitely tag us. I love to see what you picked up. And if you like this episode and feel it resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up by clicking that like button. And if you feel it could encourage someone or motivate them, definitely share it while subscribing or following, depending on where you're listening, and hit that notification bell to never miss a weekly episode. We air our episodes every Saturday, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So until next time, remember to mother holistically and thrive authentically. I'm your host, Kaylee Berlinee, and together we're winning. Bye, y'all.